this wonderful effort. He's put a lot of time and effort into this book, and we're here to find a little bit more about overcoming the in-between. We're on a journey. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tyrone Jordan. Inspiration did you have to write this book?
Well, when I think about it, I remember when first receiving the call into ministry, and even at that time, just been married, had a 3-year-old son, and I didn't know it then, but that was the beginning of a journey that I wasn't quite aware of. It's like it was just taking place, and I guess what I done is, when I first started, I was journaling. And as I journaled the ups and downs, and even I journaled things that my wife don't even know I journaled. But then it was a matter of about a year and a half ago, I decided to put everything together. And this book is not an autobiography. It just deals with the different moments that anyone faces when they declare purpose in their life, or even understand that God has a calling over their life. Those moments are unpredictable, but I believe that we all face some of the similar moments in our journey. So I guess when I reflect back and do the addition, overcoming the cave, overcoming stand still, and putting those things together, that would make this book come together. Overcoming the in-between.
Yeah. Wonderful. What is the message you would like the reader to take away from this book?
I would say that throughout all that we go through in life, it's always a reason. It's a reason why we go through what we go through. It's just not anything that happens just coincidental, or it's just not luck. But whenever God has his hand on your life, whether it's in the corporate world, or even in raising a family, or even in ministry, there's a journey that we all have to go through. And depends on whether or not we want to be in his will, it's contingent upon our focal point. Because we have a choice that we have to make. And I believe that his will should come before our will. And sometimes in his will, it goes against everything that we believe, or some things that which we was taught, because God's will for our life is different than anybody else's will. So I would say that to understand the difference between God's will, his divine plan for your life, versus your plan. Because if the truth be told, our plan is not always God's plan. Our will is not always God's will. How we want to raise our home may not be how God wants to raise our home. Sometimes we've been brought up a certain way, but when we think about it, whenever God has his hand on your life, everything connected to you, comes along with you. So therefore, you just can't bring it up the way you was brought up, because it's a different age, different generation, different time. And if the truth be told, Satan, he's always beefing up his attack as well. And there's so many people tapping out in that in-between moment because they can't separate God's will from their will.
It's real good, real good. I'm just so excited because as the t-shirt says today, we're on a journey. And we're just so excited. As a writer, I have a question for you. What chapter in this book stands out to you the most?
Listen, I was reading this book the other day, and I tried to read it as if I was just somebody else. And it was hard for me to do because I would read it and I say, man, I shouldn't have said this, or man, this punctuation mark should have been here. But when I read it, when I got to the chapter, overcoming stand still, can God trust you to stay put? That's and I remember in that particular chapter, it talks about when Joshua was following Moses. Moses went to the top of the mountain to hear from God, to receive the 10 Commandments. Joshua was assisting his leader. Everybody knew Joshua knows at the base of the mountain. But Joshua was not yet ready to be in the face of God. Neither was he yet ready to lead the congregation. So his assignment was, I need you to stay put. One question asked in that chapter, what do you do whenever it seems like God is occupied and everybody who you know, you out of reach of them? Who do you talk to at that time? A lot of times, including myself, I struggle with first denying myself, because sometimes in that moment, people tell you, you deserve more than this, or you deserve this. Why it seems like they handle you in the kind of way, you know? But the question is, can God trust you to stay put? Can God trust you to stay right there until he give you an assignment, or until he give you or put you where he wants you to be at? Because when you think about it, even now, it seems as if no one wants leadership. No one want to be told, per se, what to do, because they still view leaders as being common or being man, and they put leaders on the same level that they're on. But anytime God has his hands on you, you got to be up under somebody. You know, there's some things that you don't know, some things you got to be taught, and I think that's the struggle now that's really getting people off course, because God can't trust them to stay put. So that overcoming standstill, understanding that your life is not in someone else's hands, but it's in God's hands, even though it seems like man is giving you instruction. So in that moment, humility is brought out. Pride has to be obsolete. Arrogancy, y'all. And then, of course, overcoming that voice telling you, you know, man, why are you up there in the face of God? You know, if God could trust you to be in his face, then he would invite you in his presence. If God could trust you to lead people, then he'll tell you what to do. But because he cared for Joshua, and God knows Moses cared for Joshua, in that sense, I believe in that moment, those 40 days he was stuck in that place, I just believe that the Lord was also preparing him for that journey that he had whenever Moses had died. So if he never would have passed that test, he would have never been, left in charge of that congregation later on.
That's powerful. Knowing that God can trust you to just stand still. Another question, do you feel this book speaks to this generation issues? How does that?
I believe it does. I was brought up, in church, pretty much all my life, and I'm not an old guy now. Sometimes I feel like it. I'm not an old guy now, but this generation has changed. This generation seems like they want to take the initiative, or it's as if they don't want to be handled. But I think that leadership is very important, and if this generation can understand that you need a leader to help develop you and help prepare you, but then also for that leader to understand that you can't deal with this generation like you dealt with the generation before them, because it's a different mindset. They're more intelligent. They are technical. Things has changed. But I believe that if this generation can catch hold of it, you may not go through the same thing that your mom or grandma went through, but if you can embrace these truths within this book, I believe it will help them in their journey. I believe it will help them in their journey.
And as I take a look at the book, those who already have it can see the beautiful outlay of the book. And I love the fact that each chapter, at the end, you have an opportunity to journal. And I think that's very powerful, like the points that we can pull from each chapter to even write down notes. And that's a great add to the book. I got a question for you. Could you elaborate a little bit on the chapter, Overcoming the Cave?
Yeah. Overcoming the Cave deals with the servant, or the member, or the minister, or even a person in the corporate world who has a boss, and it seems like they know that they deserve maybe more, or that their ability that they have is maybe better than someone else who they're working with, and when they have an opportunity to really undermine their leader, and it deals with David. Whenever David, we all know that the Lord's hand was on David. David was anointed. He killed Goliath. And Saul, the Bible says the evil spirit came upon Saul, to where now he was after the life of David. But the Lord did not reassign David in that time. I believe at that moment, David's heart was truly revealed that he was not trying to take his leader's position. He was not trying to become king. He was not trying to force himself to be something that yet God's hand was not on him to be. Even though he was anointed for, but the time of his season was not yet to walk in that kingship. So when he was in that cave, and Saul was in that cave, and I remember the scripture talks about, and I think in that chapter it brings up that scripture, I think he cut the skirt, cut the hem of his skirt off. and how the people around David say, you know what, David, this may be your opportunity to slay Saul, and if when you slay him, we can push you to be king. But David passed the cave test. When he had an opportunity to take his leader out, he understood that even though his leader's heart had turned towards him, he was still the man of God, and that God still assigned him to serve Saul. I think in this journey, especially when you're talking about people progressing even in ministry, progressing even in the corporate world, you don't got to undermine your leader to get to the top. You don't got to undermine your leader to get, you don't got to undermine your leader to get to the top. You don't got to undermine your boss to get to the top, because God's hand is on you. It's just on you. So therefore, it's not your job to fight a battle that is never meant for you to fight. Because if you fight your leader, somebody's going to fight you. So that overcoming the cave, you know, will never, because think about it now, people push you too fast. You know, people tell you what you deserve, what you ought to be. They'll tell you that you know, I think in that chapter it deals with, some people tell you that you're being held back. And especially when you already know the enemy been messing with you with those thoughts already. And it ain't nothing like somebody confirming out loud what you feel on the inside. And it's up to you whether or not you take that as ammunition to kind of push yourself there, or do you just stand still and say, Lord, I see what the enemy's trying to do. I'm not going to bite the hand that's been feeding. Because sometimes the leaders don't change. It's the people change. The servant change. Because they realize they have a gift, they realize they have a talent, and they forgot the one who prayed for, they forgot the one who really witnessed to them when they, you know, before they got to where they're at. So I think overcoming the cave, that's a good chapter, as it deals with that servant understanding that if you don't got to fight your leader to get to the top.
That's good. There are so many wonderful chapters, and one name that really sticks out to me, and I think a lot of people may can deal with, overcoming moments of resentment and bitterness. Elaborate a little bit about that.
Well, I think some of us, well, most people, have been scarred, whether it was from a family member or from someone in the church. And a lot of times, if you can't forgive, if you can't let bygones be bygones, there's no way you can fully operate in your gifting and allow the Lord to really manifest his love in your heart towards people. A lot of times, if you think about this, resentment really rests in a lot of Christians. It really rests bitterness. You got a lot of bitter church people out there who done been mishandled, or maybe through the word, through the gospel. And when they become bitter, they label the whole ministry off what one person done. They label the whole organization off of what one church may have done. When the Bible says that we got to forgive. If you don't forgive, you can't expect your heavenly Father to forgive you. So that's I think one of the most key things is, if we harbor bitterness and resentment, I don't care where you go, the enemy always bring up to time. And the thing is, people have to walk on eggshells, and you don't want people around you to feel like they got to walk on eggshells to deal with you or to handle you or to even talk to you. But sometimes when a person still is harboring bitterness and resentment in their heart, if somebody speaks to them and their tone is different, they all of a sudden they think they're being attacked. They think somebody might be, mistreating them. Overcoming bitterness and resentment, I think, is one of the most important parts of this journey, because you want to be able to forgive quickly. Because sometimes, whenever even your leader tells you that to hold up on a certain project or to hold up on something, you'll begin to think that he's trying to pick at you and tease you. And the enemy will mess with your mind, and before you know it, you begin to serve grudgingly. And sooner or later, it's going to come out. You're going to snap. If you're a leader, or even if you're a servant, bitterness is contagious. It's like a plague that can really destroy a whole ministry. Bitterness and resentment, it harbors in that spirit of discord. Because resentment always loves somebody that wants somebody to listen to it. So now you get people getting up, throwing off in churches, throwing off in songs, throwing off in just a speech. Want people to feel what they feel. But overcoming bitterness and resentment is very important in this journey.
As I first stated, there are so many wonderful chapters on preparation, the filtration process, Can anyone relate? Can you tell me a little bit about can anyone relate?
Everybody's not supposed to know everything about you in your journey. You can't speak to everybody about it. Family, friends, even people who you may fellowship with in the same church. Because when you're a dreamer, and when you got vision, as Joseph had, his vision, his dream, put him in the bottom of the pit. From those who he thought would support his vision. A lot of times, people, whenever the Lord share with them something or deal with them about maybe a goal or a dream or some kind of ambition, why do they want somebody to co-sign with them before they take that initial step? Whenever God done told you something in secret, he done told you in secret. So therefore, if you look for somebody else to co-sign with you, they end up talking you out of what the Lord has told you. This is, I believe this moment puts you really in a tight box to where you got to pray, Lord, who do you want me to talk to? Or who can I relate to? Who can I vent to? If the truth be told, everyone is not qualified to go with you in this journey. Everybody's not, they don't supposed to go. And if you try to make them go, you'll feel like that you got to, Lord help me right now, like you got to adjust your vision to fit them. And if you adjust to fit people who really are supposed to go with you in this moment, you won't reach your full potential. You won't see it. Now this causes people to look at you as being arrogant, as being selfish. That's not the case. I just first got to lock into to where I'm totally convinced myself that this is what God wants me to do. So therefore, before I talk to someone, I got to make sure I'm confident in it. So if they neglect it, I'm not neglecting it. If they resist it, I'm not going to resist it. You know. So can anyone relate? Everybody won't be able to relate. Even Joseph's dad didn't quite see it. But that didn't change it because his dad didn't see it. Sometimes leaders may not see all that God has for your life. And sometimes, if you're not careful, you'll become hesitant because people who you think should see it, they don't see it. And you'll find yourself putting your own self, or yourself putting your own self in a place of do nothing, waiting for different ones to approve what God already told you to do.
And I don't want to give away the entire book, but just so many fascinating chapters. Handling isolation. How do we do that, and how does that relate even in this book? Handling isolation, overcoming in between.
Sometimes you could be in a room full of people and still feel isolated. You could be around, I'm talking about thousands of people, hundreds of people who knew you, but still feel, because why? Your mind is somewhere else. Your heart is somewhere else. Your vision is somewhere else. In this moment, I believe that this is when you really find a prayer life with the Lord, or even learn how to connect with the Lord. This is where journaling is very important. Because in moments of isolation, sometimes your wife won't understand. Sometimes your children don't understand. Sometimes your leader or your parents don't quite understand these things. I think in this isolation moment, the devil, he messes with your mind. He messes with you. He tells you, he wants you to become vulnerable. To where now you'll be able to he wants you to open up to end and everything, to really comfort you. I have experienced, and I know many others have experienced, even if the Lord has used somebody mightily, even in a service or even to pour out into someone else, when you're done, now you wonder, who's going to pour back into me? You know, who's going to speak a word into my life? Who's going to call me out? You know, when the guest evangelist comes, sometimes, wow, I hope he can just look my way and call me up here and speak a word. But why do they got to speak a word that you already know? So therefore, you know, now this is the moment which that individual got to pour into themselves. You got to remind yourself of who you are in the Lord. So therefore, your meditation, reading that Bible, reading scripture, and not just in this church world, but also in the corporate world, in your home, Sometimes the wife, sometimes the children, even children sometimes feel isolated. The wife feels isolated, the husband feels isolated. But overcome isolation is real important, or else you begin to seek out for the wrong thing to comfort you. Because listen, we in the real world, and we face real struggles. And when a person feels this way, they feel as if, you know what, I got to seek out for something to really soothe my emotions or soothe my mind. That's when infidelity takes place. That's when marital affairs takes place. That's when the person who may have not drunk a sip go back to drinking a little bit. Because now, if you're not careful, it'll take you to a state of depression. So now you're inviting things back into your life that the Lord has separated you from. You got to overcome this moment of isolation, or else you won't get to what God will have you to get to.
Well said, well said. And I don't, as our first stated, don't want to give away the entire book. Amen. There's so much that can be said. One more. The will to overcome.
Well, the will to overcome, you was made for this. You were made for this. I think in that chapter, you know, when you look back over the individual's life, how you was brought up with no dad, or even having to raise your kids on your own, brought up in a home to where, you know, the mom or the father was distracted by the cares of this world, or you know, the different upbringings in different homes. The individual that was brought up in that tough environment, it developed them with a certain mindset, with a mindset of determination, a survival mindset. So therefore, the will to overcome, you got to learn how to dig deep. Because if you don't dig deep, there's no way you're going to be able to encourage yourself through these times. So therefore, you was made for this. If the Lord called you, or if the Lord has his hand on your life, or even if there's some kind of big business venture that only you can see, there's something in you that after you allow the Lord to pull the best out of you, you will find yourself walking into that moment. So this chapter deals with being determined, not being afraid to step out that boat by yourself, not being afraid to walk on water with no life jacket, you know, because now the only one you're looking to is Jesus. The only one you're looking to is Jesus, and he's the only one that can help you. Because ain't nobody going to jump out that boat to save you. Ain't nobody going to jump out that boat to rescue you. They're going to tell you you shouldn't have jumped out there in the first place. But you got to use that boat mentality. You got to be willing to walk on water. So therefore, the will to overcome, if I die while trying, if I don't get to where I know I can get to, it would not be said that I didn't try. It would not be said that I allowed fear to keep me handicapped. It would not be said that doubt controlled my faith. It would not be said that I didn't take risk for my own self.
That's awesome. I tell you, I want to ask another one, but I will not, because I don't want to tell the whole book. It just makes you want to go ahead and grab and really eat all the good information that's in this book. Another question, how did you come up with the title, Overcoming the In-Between? We're on a journey.
That scripture, and whenever Jesus told the disciples, let us go to the other side. And whenever they got in that boat, Jesus was in a boat sleep. And the storm came. And that's what the cover of this book came from. The boat in the middle of a storm. But you can see that sun peeking through. So therefore, you know, when you're in the middle of that journey, the only way you're going to overcome it, you got to realize that Jesus told you to go to the other side. So therefore, he's the only one qualified to speak peace into your soul. He's the only one that has the authority to help you through those moments. No one else has that authority but the one who told you to go to the other side. So therefore, when you're in the middle of that storm, or the middle of your in-between, the Lord already knew what storm was going to approach. He already knew the clouds. He already knew what's going to be ahead. So the only one you can rely on is Jesus. That's where the title came from, overcoming the in-between. That scripture, that verse, that chapter, the Lord said, let's go to the other side. Yeah, we're on the journey. We're on the journey.
Do you feel like the concepts of this book reach several facets of life, such as leadership, business, family, and relationships? If so, how?
I believe it does, because even in the corporate world, or even in businesses, or even in your family, I think we all go through transition. We all go through stages in which after you raise your children, now you got to get them through school. So now your children's on another journey, and then the grandbaby comes. The grandchild comes. So therefore now you're a grandparent, you're a mom, you're a dad, and then all of a sudden now you got a house, an empty nest. Same thing with on the job. There's always levels of promotions, always things out there available for you to move up in life or move up in the corporate world or even in the ministry. You won't be an usher always. You won't be doing what you're doing always. But I do say this: as the Lord bless you, don't forget where you came from. Don't forget don't lose that servant's mentality. So I think it helps every generation. Even now, I'm on another journey. Because after you get to that point, to where you saw this was going to get to, now it's another chapter in your life. So therefore, it's recycling itself. After you get through one moment, there's another moment. Because once you realize that the Lord got you to that point, okay, Lord, now what's out there for me now? So now it's a higher height and a deeper depth. But even throughout all that, it's still a journey in that in-between moment.
Would you feel like this book, and I've heard it so many times, and many people probably can attest to this, where they say they feel stuck? Will there be concepts or things in this book to help them get out of that place of being stuck?
I believe it is. I think overcoming standstill is good. I think overcoming the voice or the voice of discord is good. Because a lot of times people choose to be stuck. The Lord never told you couldn't have vision. Matter of fact, he said without a vision, people perish. So I wouldn't blame being stuck all on leadership. I think being stuck is a matter of you don't see yourself coming out of what you're in. Because when you don't see yourself coming out of what you're in, you choose to remain where you're at. And if you choose to remain where you're at, the only thing you can do is complain about what's not going right, complain what's not going well. So I think a lot of times people choose to be stuck because they don't see themselves coming out of what they're in. That's why exposure is good. If the only thing you've seen was four corners, that's the only thing that's going to, that's all you're going to see. That's all you're going to see yourself becoming, is the four corners. But when you open up that one wall, and understand there's something on the other side, then now it opens up your horizons, open up your mind to see that this world is bigger than four corners. So therefore, person being stuck, I think it's time for them to reevaluate their lives, make sure they got vision in their lives. I refuse to work every day just to be working. I refuse to serve in ministry just to be serving. I want to tap into everything that God got in store for my life.
Good. If you had to describe the book in one word, what would it be?
Journey. Journey. I think the journey. We are pilgrims in this world. We are pilgrims within our own vision. So I would say journey.
What principles of this book have you had to apply to your own life that was most difficult and the ones you've seen most success out of?
I would think, well, really all of them, but I think one of the main ones was the filtration process. I need the Lord to keep working on it. And the filtration process, that's the point to where now you're honest with your struggles. You're honest with your flesh. Understanding that with every level God bless you at, there's always going to be a temptation out there that's going to try to knock you off your assignment. And that temptation is going to be something that you really used to like to do. And if a person don't allow themselves to be filtered by the Spirit of God through His Word, that person can't say what they won't get, what they won't do. So that filtration process, being honest with the Lord in your prayer time. And in this, everybody not supposed to know you're filtrated. Everybody not supposed to know. A lot of times, because people refuse to acknowledge that even though they're saved, even though they love the Lord, that this flesh is still a mess. and it still wants to be satisfied. And if a person don't allow the Lord to filter them, you can preach all day, you can sing, but if your character is not intact, then it contaminates your anointing. If you're not cleansed, if you're not honest in your private life, and if that struggle, and I think that chapter is just pretty much, the lustful desires, the different things that we face, attitude, anger-wise, all those moments in which we really got to pray that God to help us with. Because if you don't, sooner or later, it's going to show. It's going to show. You can be a big mega preacher. You can be the head of a corporation. But one moment can destroy your name. One moment can really contaminate your influence, because ministry is not ministry unless you got influence. You can be anointed because the gift comes without repentance. But when you look at the gift comes without repentance, when you're flawed, when your character is flawed by something that you knew that you struggled with, it's not God's fault. It's not the person's fault who tempted you. It's the individual's fault who allowed it to come back in and control them. But that filtration process, every single day of my life, I'm asking the Lord constantly to filter me.
One question I have for you, what's the vision for this book?
Well, my desire, and listen, I know there's an audience here. I know some may be viewing. And I never claimed to know everything. I never claimed, I think even on this pre-phase, I never claimed to be full of so much wisdom. But I believe that there's something in this book that can bless somebody all across this world. And I see this book, and even to put some things in place, would actually reach this worldwide market. I know it has some errors in it. I know it has some flaws here and there, but my heart was put into it. And I just didn't write the book, sit on the shelf, or just to say, well, I wrote a book, so that's something off my bucket list. My vision for this book, and for the books that come after this book, was to impact this whole world. That's my vision for it. Yeah. And if somebody's on Mars, or somebody on Mars, you reach whoever the Lord would allow you to reach.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, as we wrap up, where can Overcoming the In-Between be purchased and the cost?
Well, I know it's on Amazon, it's on Barnes & Nobles, also on Author House Publishing. Someone can go online and get those books. I think the books on there may be a little over $14. I'm not sure what the shipping and handling may be. I always keep books on me as well. They're $15. There's some ebooks available for $5.99 online as well. I think the price on Barnes & Nobles may be around that $13 range. I think Author House Publishing also is around that $13, $14 range. I know this book plans on being, as of right now, it's scheduled to be in Toronto, Canada, September the 22nd. Also, it's been marketed into the New York Times. Hopefully, so after the legwork is done, there's another marketing company that has reached out to put it in front of, so maybe some book dealers. Right, I think it took right at 15,000 book dealers that they have maybe taken interest in doing so. So maybe a book deal may come out of it. But my heart is, whatever the Lord will is for it. I want His will to be done, not for my glory, but for His glory, that somebody may be blessed through reading.
So beautiful that the Lord has allowed the works of your hands to do something so wonderful, so powerful. Coming out the small town of Willacoochee. And we're just forever grateful. This is just part of the legacy that I feel like God is leaving, allowed you to leave behind. I believe years from now, somebody will be able to pick up this Overcoming the In-Between and see their way through the situation. Just want to say thank you for such a wonderful interview and for this book. And at this time, are there any final sayings even from you?
Well, I thank you all that came here to this book release on today. I'm thankful for those who may be watching right now, even those who may see it a little later. Blessings to you. I pray that you can get the book. I think it'll help anyone who's reading it. And I speak blessings over every individual lives that would partake in this book And maybe, perhaps, you will be a blessing to someone else as you share with them your in-between moment. Because I believe that everything that you go through in your journey is meant not just for you, but for somebody else as well. Somebody else may not take it as someone else will, but don't ever forget that your life has quality in it, and that God has a plan for you that is also meant for somebody else to help them through their moment. May God bless you. May God keep you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.